1240 KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados, Mvskoke Radio, Mabuhedjawetchkits. Welcome to our program this week here from the beautiful studios of 1240 The Brew in wonderful, hot Okmulgee, Oklahoma. And for your weekly report on the council house, they're working on the roof today, putting in new shingles and things like that. A little activity outside mostly, but it's nice to see that happening. So. The hole in the bell tower is still there, but it's clogged up, so they're hopefully keep the pigeons out and keep it going. So let's hope that they have lots of progress here, and we'll keep you informed as we go. On this week's program, we're going to be speaking with Ms. Carly Hotved. She's with the Agricultural and Natural Resources Department, and they're hosting a program on food safety modernization at the college coming up real fast. Also, in our second segment, we'll be speaking with the Mvskoke royalty, the Miss Mvskoke Creek Nation and Junior Miss Mvskoke Creek Nation will be joining us to talk about how their roles are affecting their lives and how they're trying to represent the station. And finally, our Mvskoke Media coordinator, Jessica McBride, will give us an update on the coverage we've got lined up on the upcoming 2017 elections. She'll kind of fill us in on who's filed for candidates and possibly some information on what they might have shared and that sort of thing. So we'll kind of put her through it and give everyone a reminder, make sure that you get registered to vote. It's so important these days. So we want you to enjoy the benefits of the citizenship in the Mvskoke Creek Nation, but you've also got to take on those responsibilities. Okay, enough of that. First of all, welcome to Carly Hotved. Thank you for coming in today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
We have seen this little flyer here on the Food Safety Modernization Act training that's coming up at the college. From 8 to 5. Now that's today, tomorrow?
That'll actually be August 2nd, so it'll be a week from today.
That's right. I'm losing myself in my calendar here. And you're working with Oklahoma State University Horticulture Department to put it on for the agricultural producers. First of all, for those folks who aren't familiar with your department, why don't you give us kind of a capsule of who you are?
Sure. We reorganized under the Department of Interior Affairs to create a division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. That legislation was passed November of last year. I'm the director of Agriculture and Natural Resource Division. That includes our agribusiness operations, our ag youth program, our fencing program, and our invasive species eradication program.
Holy mackerel, that's a lot of stuff.
It is.
I'm not even familiar with the invasive species of the fencing programs. Maybe we'll have you back to talk about those.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, but first of all, let's concentrate on this food safety modernization. Now, it says act here. That means it's a law.
That's correct. The Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law January of 2011 by President Obama. They have been going through, when I say they, I mean Congress and the agencies that administer the Food Safety Modernization Act have been going through a rulemaking process to develop and kind of designate how the law needs to be implemented. We are nearing the end of that rulemaking process, and at the end of that rulemaking process, the deadlines are triggered for compliance. So we want to make sure to give people the opportunity to learn about whether or not they need to be compliant, if they have an exemption, and how to navigate that process.
Well, maybe let's answer that question right now. What is that particular food safety modernization, and who does it affect?
Sure. The Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law to convert the way that food safety is targeted. Right now, the United States is on a response methodology. So if there's an issue, they come back in and try and do a correction. This tries to target the food safety issues from the beginning in order to address safety at the producer level and all the way through the manufacturing process, so that a lot of the issues that we're currently seeing are resolved before they even get to that point.
So we're not talking about the vendors who come to the festival and anything like that?
So the end users, some of those vendors, if they are producing their own food on site, there may be an opportunity for them to be impacted by the food safety modernization rulemaking. But generally, those food handling principles will be addressed by state or local laws.
Right. You got to comply with those laws. So when you say the producers, what comes to mind is the huge manufacturers dealing with a dirty plant or something, contamination getting into their raw materials.
That's one component that the Food Safety Modernization Act would address. So you hear about the listeria outbreaks in ice cream facilities or things like that. This is what that rule would be intended to target.
Right now, we saw huge backlash sort of here in Oklahoma when that ice cream producer was found to have, what was it, salmonella?
Salmonella or listeria, but it was a foodborne illness, yes.
Right, and people were getting sick.
Yes. So the Food Safety Modernization Act would require some safety training for employees, some health and safety protocols to be written and adopted. In addition to some record-keeping requirements for those types of facilities. There's also consideration for producers, so people who are actually growing and producing crops to take to market.
Right, so we'll try and kind of head off the problems before they reach us. If it gets to the consumer, then we're in trouble.
Exactly.
How would that affect the folks around here? I think there are, of course, large numbers of Mvskoke citizens involved in agriculture, but are they talking about this kind of level or something higher? Are we involved at those levels?
Sure. The rule is pretty nuanced as far as who is impacted and how it works, and that's why we encourage people to come out to the training so we can get specific information about their individual operations. However, the biggest impact that the Food Safety Modernization Act will have will be on people who are producing that are producing crops that are regularly consumed raw. So there's a list of those types of produce. The ones that is going to target our operation would be the rules on watermelons. Mm-hmm. So if you produce a commodity that is regularly consumed raw, that's when the safety issues are going to impact that farm operation, because there's no intervening manufacturing or processing before it gets to the consumer. So they want to make sure that safe operations are occurring on the farm level because there's no intervention in between.
Oh, now I've got this urge to go out and find a black diamond and put it in the refrigerator there to cool off.
Yeah.
I love those little sweet melons.
We're growing those at the farm in Hannah this year.
Really?
Yes.
Will they be for sale?
They will be for sale. We're actually going to be offering them at the travel plazas here in Okmulgee and Mvskoke starting next month.
Oh, yeah. Look forward to that. Now, if someone were to attend this training at the college, what happens? What will they go through?
Sure. So OSU Horticulture will be providing the training and materials. We have offered to host, and the college was generous enough to allow us some space in order to provide that. We will be going over what the Food Safety Modernization Act is, how the rules are implemented, what the deadlines for compliance are, what types of exemptions are available for producers, and also some discussion about some currently undefined or unclarified terms and how they may impact Indian country.
And has the law now been to the point where they're looking at final regulations and how these things are going to happen?
Yes, as there has been public comment periods where questions and comments have been taken, and we are nearing the final rule. And at the trigger of the final rule, the compliance deadlines will be in effect.
Now, the word modernization is key there. Now, we're talking about getting rid of some old methods of dealing with food safety and implementing new ones. Has the industry changed that much?
Sure. As the industry evolves, there's always scientific practices that indicate what types of improvements might be made. A lot of the handling practices are going to be pretty consistent. Some of the regulations are actually common sense, like hand washing, making sure your employees that are working in the fields are going to be doing harvest for these raw commodities aren't sick. To prevent those types of spread. The other issues are putting together safety protocols for each individual farm and addressing some of the on-site nuance issues that may or may not impact the crops. So it's a targeted impact. Some of it's common sense. Some of it is a little more scientific when it comes to water cleanliness protocols.
Well, that I'm glad you mentioned that. It brings up an issue that kind of comes to mind there. There was, I believe, some fatalities connected with a situation like that. Was it bean sprouts, something like that?
Yes.
And a farm was using some water and fertilizer combinations that produced some nasty bacteria that got into the plants.
Yes, bean sprouts are a particularly interesting case because they are grown in warm, moist, wet conditions, which are perfect setups for bacteria to thrive. So our bean sprout operations are particularly targeted for safety due to the listeria concerns that arise in those types of production. So those will be significantly more regulated than general raw commodities, but that is certainly an issue that the Food Safety Modernization Act is targeting.
Right. Well, I hope all of that's settled out because they really added a nice touch to a salad, believe me.
Yes.
Now, are there any particular products or commodities in this area that are kind of falling under the watchful eye of this law?
Sure. We were interested because in McIntosh County, and particularly the Hanna area where our farm is at, we know that there are quite a few producers that are producing watermelons. Additionally, other types of crops that are consumed raw are delivered directly to the consumer, such as farmers market products like zucchini, squash, other types of commodities that are eaten raw, sometimes carrots. Those types of products that are sold could be targeted under that. Generally, there's a list of what commodities would be considered consumed as raw, and those are listed out. There are also exemptions for products that are not consumed raw. So generally, if there's any sort of cooking that has to occur before consumption, those would be exempted. However, I like a good raw squash off the vine now and then.
Right. Yeah. Our neighbors just gave us some too, so I'm looking forward to something there. Are there? Does this extend now to? We talked about vendors before, but like farmers markets. If someone were to, browse a farmer's market looking for, the ingredients for a meal.
Sure. So there are some levels of exemptions that are available. Generally, if your facility has not produced, produce that is worth $25,000 annually for the last 3 years, then you would be considered exempt. However, if you're producing more than that amount over the last 3 years, your annual average is above the $25,000, you jump into the next category of what could be considered a qualified exemption. The exemption rules get pretty nuanced at that point. If it's under $500,000 average sales, and then where your sales occur. If they're within 275 miles of an Indian reservation, and if they're going directly to the end user, such as a consumer or a restaurant, there are some additional rules that come into play there. In order to get the full information, I'd recommend that people attend the training to be as specific as possible, because it can be pretty nuanced, and I don't want to share information that might be confusing without having specific responses available.
Are there types of information that you can share? I know a lot of people enjoy going to farmers markets.
Yes.
That's not exactly what we're talking about, but while we're near and dear to the subject, are there things that people might want to have in their minds when they go shopping, like here, things to look for, or perhaps warning signs and red flags?
Sure. I think probably the best thing if you're going to farmers markets or other local produce is getting to know your producer, knowing where they're at, where they're located, having a conversation about safe handling practices, hand washing, who the employees are, and what kind of training that they do with regard to food handling safety. You might even ask if they have a food handler's permit. That's something that's regulated by the state at this point. However, those safety protocols are generally common sense. It's always a good idea, and a lot of people are moving towards this and knowing where your food comes from, knowing who your producer is, and having a good idea of what they're looking for. From my perspective, while quite a few farmers market producers will probably fall within that exempt category, this may become something that's consumer driven. So if the consumer is looking for producers that are Food Safety Modernization Act certified or compliant, that may be something where the market will be driving the compliance requirement rather than the government stepping in and saying you must.
Let me take that one step further. Now, if you yourself were going to a market, one like they used to have here before the construction,
Sure.
What sort of things might catch your eye when you're deciding on produce like that?
Sure. So I'd be looking for clean produce that looks good. I would be looking to make sure that there weren't any sort of standing water. One of the things that concerned me, I did happen to see a food vendor at another location out of state that had a 5-gallon bucket of water that she was dipping her heads of lettuce in before she was chopping it and directly serving it. And obviously, if you're putting more than one head of lettuce in the bucket of water, there's going to be a hygiene concern there. So I'd be looking for produce that looks clean and safe. However, even though it looks clean and safe, doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a bacterial contamination. So I'd like to get to know my producer, get to know, what their hand washing protocols look like, how they handle their produce. I'd be looking for crops that appear clean, making sure that the setup is clean. A lot of just kind of visual inspection is really what the consumer can do, and ask questions of the producer that's there on site.
So a spot on an apple may not necessarily condemn the whole fruit?
No, and that's something that's pretty interesting. There's a lot of food waste that we see coming from supermarkets and from farmers markets because the produce isn't necessarily as pristine as the consumer may be interested in. It's kind of like a dark spot on a banana. Just cut it off and eat the rest of it. It's still a good piece of fruit.
Okay. Well, let's back up here now. The training is at the College of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, August 2nd to just that one day, is it?
That's correct.
From 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. And you're working with OSU on this, right?
Yes, we're working with the OSU Horticulture Department. They have funds available to provide trainings around the state. They're specifically targeting native areas and native producers as part of an outreach to encourage the continued production and preservation of traditional foods for Indian country. We're excited to partner with them. They bring a pretty good wealth of knowledge with regard to the Food Safety Modernization Act and how it can impact produce producers. It's a really good opportunity for us to collaborate.
Okay, great. Here's a question that has absolutely nothing to do with this. On the farm down in Hannah, I understand there was a problem with the feral hogs.
Feral hogs is something that we have to combat regularly. I mentioned our invasive species budget or program before. That feral hogs are considered invasive species, so that program is intended to target and eradicate feral hogs. We take significant mitigation steps towards addressing them, which include better fencing, sometimes electrical fencing, and trapping. When the hogs are trapped, they're disposed of on site.
Okay, and I imagine there might be a hunter or two out there?
We are our laborers on site and our farm employees, if they see them, they will take care of them on site.
Okay, and that is not an invitation for the public to come out.
That's correct. We do have employees out there at various hours, and I want to make sure we can ensure their safety.
Great, okay. Now, Carly, if someone wanted to get in touch with you and get more information about this particular training coming up at the college or anything else going on in your department, how do they do that?
Sure. Probably the best way to get information about the department would be to contact my assistant, Rachel Locust. She can be reached at 918-549-2999. 2555. I can always be contacted through email at chotvet@mcn-nsn.gov. I know that's kind of a long email, and I have a funny to spell last name. So phone is probably the best way to reach me. But we are regularly in the housing building on the second floor in the far back left corner with environmental services. So, pop-ins are appreciated, and we're excited to be able to share our program information with anybody who is interested.
Okay, great. Well, we wish you wonderful success with this training, more interest in what you're doing there. And thank you so much for making time for Mvskoke Radio.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll be taking a short pause, and we'll be speaking with Mvskoke royalty right after a break. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio on 1240 The Brew.
Almost 150 years ago, the Mvskoke Creek Nation established their capital here, and they called the place Okmulgee. Today, Okmulgee is a thriving town of business and tradition with a spirit of community that is alive and well, a community of service for a fellow man. And no entity brings more to the table than the Mvskoke Creek Nation, providing a whole plethora of services for our citizens and our community alike, such as housing assistance, medical attention, food services, and community events. For more information about the Mvskoke Creek Nation, visit our website at www.mcn-nsn.gov. The Mvskoke Creek Nation, your partner for the future.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew. Now joining us now is the 2017-18 Mvskoke royalty. Miss Mvskoke Creek Nation, Amberly Proctor, and Junior Miss Aisha Phillips are joining us. They're here to talk about their roles, and also our reporter, Liz Gray, who is a former royal person, has also come in to join our discussion. So welcome. Thank you for making time out of that incredibly busy schedule to chat with us today. So, okay, now when you respond, I got to have more than in the head now. Yeah, it's radio, not TV.
Yeah.
But, okay, well, let's start with you, Ms. Proctor, Miss MCN, Mvskoke Creek Nation. A little bit about who you are and where you're from.
Hinsche, Amberly Proctor, Chao Chifkados, Ijogi Ijostidois, Wilgofki Migozapkochogo, Aidos. Hello, my name is Amberly Proctor. I am a daughter of the Deer Clan and a member of Wilgofki Indian Baptist Church. I am 21 years old and I am from Hannah, Oklahoma. I'm the 2017-2018 Miss Mvskoke Creek Nation.
Nice command of the language. Joining us also is the Junior Miss Aisha Phillips. She's in here joining us. Welcome to our program. Tell us a little about who you are.
Hische, Stongo, Aisha Phyllis Johojifkudos, Amma Julgit Ball and Kolopolkog and Oshledos, Choch Chogi Lamar Momin Ikola Phillips. Hello, how are you? My name is Aisha Phillips and I'm 17 years old. My parents are Lamar and Ikola Phillips and I'm from Jinx High School.
Gosh, I'm envious of both of you, your command of the language. I'm just a beginner myself and can get through an introduction, but that's about it. I'm still working on it though. So the toughest part is admitting that you don't know. I think. So anyway, now you have taken on quite a role here now. The job, so to speak, of representing our tribe is very important. You may be the one and only face many people get of our tribe. Now, let's start with you, Amberly. First of all, why did you want to do it, and what do you expect?
Well, my journey actually started 2 years ago. I ran for the 2016-2017 Miss, and what inspired me to run was I read Wilbur Chabon Gouge's letter, Struggle to Survive, which was written to Muskogee women. And it was just a call for Muskogee women to rise up and be role models for the younger generation. And after reading that, I knew that this is something that I needed to do. And although I didn't get it in 2016, I was the runner-up. I knew it was something that I still wanted to pursue. And so I decided to run again, and I was able to get it. I'm very blessed to be in this position, but that's what inspired me was that letter, and to just be a role model for our young Muskogee women.
Wow, that gives me chills. Ms. Phillips, same questions. What was your initiative? What got you so interested that you had to participate and compete?
So I was at Challenge Bowl, I think it was the 2015 Challenge Bowl, and Tara Beaver, she had a table for the princesses, and she asked me if I wanted to join, but I didn't want to at first because I thought there was like a stereotypical look of a Muskogee girl, and that to be a princess you had to be that stereotypical look, because I'm darker than the other girls who ran against me, so I was a little nervous about running, but I decided to run because I wanted to learn more about the culture and our history and our language, and just to meet the Muskogee people and learn about their lives and how they're trying to preserve our culture and our history. And so I decided to run, and I ran last year, and I was runner-up, but I decided to run again because I feel like my platform of cultural pride is very important to me, and I just want to teach not only Muskogee youth that we're important, that we matter, but teach all Native youth that our cultural history is important to us, and if we have that, then we have our identity.
That goes back to the struggle to survive, the keepers of the nation, like the women being keepers of the nation, and I think that's great that that persistence to never give up and to keep going and to be so proud of your culture and wanting to preserve that you decided, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be a keeper of the nation.
And representing our tribe, you'll be doing a lot of traveling and going to a lot of different places, including around the country and our ancestral homelands in Georgia. Do you think much about that responsibility? I mean, it's kind of, I've got to be on point all the time. I have to keep things going. Amberly? Absolutely. We have over 80,000 citizens in our tribe, and we are representing every single one of them. So it's a huge responsibility, but it's one that I take great honor in having that responsibility, because as you said earlier, this may be the only interaction some people have with someone from our tribe. So I have to make sure that I'm culturally aware, I'm speaking my language, I have, the knowledge of the history and the customs and the traditions. So it's a great honor. It's a big responsibility, but it's a great honor in taking that responsibility, and I'm up to the challenge for that.
And so we might be the only Muskogee people that someone might meet. It's important for us to show how Muskogee people are and give them a real representation of Muskogee people. So I think it's really fun showing them how kind and how loving Muskogee people are. I love greeting everyone with handshakes and with hugs and a big smile. Big smile.
I can see those here today.
Yeah, the awareness of the way you present yourself, has that heightened a little bit more, your speech, your posture? Tell us a little bit about how you have become more aware of your role.
Yes, I know regardless of whether I have the crown on, I'm always representing Mvskoke Creek Nation. That doesn't matter whether I was princess or not. That's just a fact. But being princess, and especially being in our attire, crown, traditional dress, I'm constantly aware that we're being watched, even if we don't realize it. So I'm always, like I said, I'm just always aware of that, and always making sure that I'm conducting myself in a positive manner, talking with people, greeting people, smiling, shaking hands, like Aisha was saying. So it's heightened that, like I'm just always aware. And I think one of the best advice that was given to us at orientation was treat everyone like they're a dignitary. So you never know who you're going to be meeting. You never know if that could be a dignitary for another tribe, but even just treating them that way, that just makes them feel special, and that just just helps me to make sure that I'm just always treating everyone with respect.
And yeah, I feel like it definitely has improved my speech and my posture, because I just like to be comfortable and I slouch a little bit. But now that I'm princess, I try to sit up straight and be uncomfortable, and and it's a really fun. It's something I'm just really proud of it, and I'm just glad that I get awareness of these things and I learn how to improve my posture and how to improve my speech when I'm speaking to other people.
This might be radio listeners, but she is sitting up straight.
The past events, I was curious about Unity. You guys went to Unity not too long ago. Tell us a little bit about that conference and how you represented Creek Nation and just the overall experience.
Well, I think it was about 2 weeks ago we went to the Unity Conference, and that stands for United National Indian Tribal Youth. And it's the largest gathering of Native youth in the world, and we had it's for Native Youth Council, so like our Mvskoke Nation Youth Council, we traveled with them and met up, and I think there were over 2,000 participants in the conference. So we're getting to meet with Native youth from not just Native youth, but Indigenous peoples groups from all over the world. And so that was an honor to be able to do that, because there are a lot of tribes in the country, and to be able to meet representatives from each one, a lot of them I've never even heard of. So to be able to learn about their culture while at the same time sharing ours was an honor for us to do. And then, there are a lot of tribal royalty there, so to be able to be there not only representing our youth council, but being there as princess representing the Mvskoke Creek Nation, that was a great experience. That was my third Unity conference that I attended, and it just keeps getting better and better every year. And last year our youth council actually won Youth Council of the Year, so we knew that, kind of the same as us for princesses, we knew that all eyes were going to be on us because we had just won Youth Council of the Year. So we were always making sure that we were engaged in all of the activities, stepping up when they needed people to step up and help out. So it was a really great experience. It was really fun.
And so this was actually my very first Unity, and I got to go, and one of my goals that I accomplished was getting to meet other members of our youth council, because I'm new to the Mvskoke Nation Youth Council, and so I didn't really talk to many people. But after going to Unity, I talked to a lot of them, and they just come up to me and talk and have conversations and joke and dance. So it's really empowering. And one of my favorite activities was meeting a group from Taiwan, and they actually showed us some of their traditional dances and their songs and different things that they do in their culture, and I feel like that was really empowering, showing us how they preserve their culture and how they preserve their language and how they want to connect with other Indigenous youth to show the world that we are Indigenous and that we're strong and that we're still here.
You've raised a point there that I've always been curious about and always wanted to ask royalty. As a reporter, I've been across a lot of Native America, Indian country, and seen these competitions, and the young women who have been chosen to represent their different tribes. What happens when you're backstage? I mean, do you get to kind of chit-chat with other royalty about being a princess? I mean, what do you talk about? Either one of you join in on that?
So,
or is this a forbidden subject?
So behind stage, I didn't really meet royalty until after I won, because the building was kind of closed off to only contestants. And so behind the stage, I was really nervous, but all the contestants were nervous, so we got to be nervous together. And what I like about our pageant is that we get to meet the contestants before pageant day. So at the royalty retreat, we get to spend a whole night with them. And so we get to meet them, and they're not just other contestants, but they're sisters. And so this helps form a sisterhood. And I'm really glad that the Mvskoke Nation does that, because I probably would have been way more nervous if I didn't have my sisters behind me, nervous with me and helping me and giving me tips on how to be better.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider it as a competition, because like she said, it's like a sisterhood. I didn't feel like I was competing against the other girls. I felt like I was more or less competing with them. So even though, like, yeah, we were competing against each other, we were helping each other out. We were going up, asking, hey, will you listen to my introduction? Will you listen to my talent? Can you help me out? So there was no animosity between any contestants. It was truly a sisterhood. Like she said, I can remember pageant day going up to Aisha. I was so nervous about speaking because Aisha's an amazing public speaker, and I struggle with that a lot. And so I remember going up to her, and she helped me, she calmed me down, she was encouraging me. So there was just a lot of encouragement and support, and so I was grateful to be a part of that. And that was part of the reason, or one of the reasons why I chose to run again, because I had such a good experience the first time, and I thought I want to be a part of this again. So it was a really good experience.
Liz, I saw you nodding your head during these responses, and you've been through this situation yourself. What did you talk about backstage? Did you chat, interact with other young women there?
I think whenever now, way back in my day, I still remember it. I still remember it was there's only 3. Whenever I ran, it was me and 2 other girls, and it was more like, hey, we're trying to make sure that neither of us mess up, to make sure that we all do our best and to put out our best and to shake off those nerves, because you are nervous and it's scary. I'm not a public speaker. I wasn't like, I came into the pageant shy and with stage fright, and going through that and having those people that I considered my friends, and they were competition, but I never saw them as competition. I saw them as sisters, as friends, and we were going to put our best out there. And it wasn't ever like I thought that they were against me or plotting against me. It's very family. Right. It's very family-like.
So you were concerned about public speaking, and here you are now working
on the radio. Yeah, things change. It builds you up.
What is the hardest part of the role that you've taken on? Is it wearing your formal dress outfits out in the hot sun like the festival? Is it the meeting, quote, celebrities, unquote, the kind of thing, or having to always be on guard, kind of, so to speak? What's the hardest part for you?
I'd say that my hardest part is remaining, not posting about controversial things, because I'm an activist. So I love to go protest for things that I believe in. But I can't really post those on social media because I'm representing our nation, and I can't, our nation can have different views on subjects, so I can't just give my view, because people are looking at me as an ambassador, and they might think that our whole nation agrees with the subject, even though they might not.
Mm-hmm. Amber?
Mine definitely, like I said earlier, is the public speaking part. Very similar to what Liz was saying, I come into this really shy, really reserved, not, if I like to stand back. I'm more of a behind the scenes person, but putting myself out there because, I am in that spotlight, so to speak, now. And so just being able to just get up in front of people and talk like that's been the most difficult part. But I'm getting better at it because I'm being forced to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm being forced to sometimes on the spot, hey, can you come up here? Can you, say the prayer before the ceremony? Can you speak to this group of people? But I'm getting better at it. And that's one of the things I'm really grateful for. And that's what I wanted to gain from this, was just being more comfortable speaking in front of people, and, not being really nervous like I used to be. So I'm getting there. It's one of the things I'm most grateful for this title, is that this is helping me to get out of my comfort zone and get more comfortable in this position.
Liz, what do you think? Are they getting pretty good at it?
Yeah, I think they're very well spoken. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with how you guys are presenting yourself right now. I know you guys can't see it, but surely you can hear it. That professionalism in their voice that is ideal for a princess.
We hear the smile in yours, too.
Yeah.
We've only got a few minutes left, and this is probably a big question, unless you've got something you want to kick in.
Go ahead.
In the reign that you have for the rest of the year, what do you hope to accomplish, Aisha?
Okay, so I hope to, well, right now I'm researching the traditional Mvskoke clothing, and I'm preparing a PowerPoint so that I can teach it to different groups of people. So maybe like our youth council, and then go around to different elementary and middle schools in Tulsa and teach them about traditional Mvskoke clothing. And I just want to teach our youth about cultural pride and learn more about our culture and meet our people so that I can learn more about our culture, like, because some things aren't recorded in books, and everything recorded in books is not accurate. So I want to show the world